Okay, so in our last tutorial we looked at materials and textures, and we made something that looked a bit like this as my computer groans as it tries to render in real time. So yeah, so we made this. There, that's much easier to look at. So what we're going to do in this one is just add a bit more detail. So we're going to just try and make this look a tiny bit better. So I'm going to see what we can do in terms of detail. Okay, actually I won't do that, I'll just leave it. I can leave that to protrude. Now, one of the things I want to put in is a ladder. So I envisage when this leg will go, this knee will almost touch the ground, so this will be horizontal, and that this can bend down quite a bit, so that if we had a small ladder here, you could climb into the cockpit. So let's cursor just selected. We'll add in a small cube. We'll scale it down. Scale it on Z. As normal, we will add in our mirror modifier and go GX, put on clipping, and to wireframe mode, and face select. We don't want any internal geometry, so we want to delete that face. Now, so I'm going to extrude that forward, and then, oops, that one, these two here, extrude, go there, and then that becomes our so I'm just doing this by eye. There are numerous ways in Blender to use arrays to do what I'm doing and make each step exactly the same distance away from the previous one, but time is our enemy. So now we will delete the faces. Okay, as before, we'll select it all, oops, and smart unwrap, and then add in our material, and we'll have a quick look. Okay, so this is how our pilot gets in, and now I just want to show you how to, because this will add a serious amount of extra detail and is a very enjoyable thing to do with robots and mechs, etc. It's adding cabling. The only thing I'd warn you about this is it can seriously add to the amount of geometry you have. We're currently sitting on 61,000 verts, which is not bad as a vert count for a character in a game. However, if we start jumping up to 200, 300, 400,000, then it becomes a different sort of game that we're making. We need a more powerful machine, and so we want to try, and if we want it to run on a mobile phone, we definitely don't want to exceed 50 or 60,000. So I'm going to show you this, and you can choose whether you want to use it or not. So how do I add in cables, etc.? So well, let's just pick the point where we want our cable to start. So let's just say the side of this gun here. So I'm going to take that. Now we shouldn't really make any changes to the geometry after we have unwrapped it. You can see the sort of really bad patterns I get. So I should really unwrap these again. Oops, because that is not pretty. So unwrap. Now, so I'll select them and go cursor to selected. And I'm going to look at this from the side, and I'm going to go add curve, Bezier curve. And it's going to add in what looks like a curve line. And over here we have the characteristics of it. So I'm going to call this cable 1. I'm going to move it here. I'm going to go into edit mode. Now this is not like anything we've looked at before. This is vector. So that this actually doesn't have any vertices in it. It just has starting points and end points and rotational sort of handles to make this curve. So press OR, rotate, G and X. So I can still use all the tools I've had before. Just going to scale them down. Well, that'll become apparent in a minute what I'm doing. So I'm going to move this along to here, and again scale it down. Now when I rotate it, it'll curve, and I can go G. I can also use our extrude tool, go E and extrude this out, rotate it around. Now where do I want this to go? This is that's why I want it to go in here, so I can move it up on the Z axis and just go G, move it into approximately the correct position. I'm going to rotate this on the Z axis, and then I'm going to extrude on X. Now that's what I've made. Now, over here it says fill half, so I'll go fill full, and I get to select how thick it is. So that's cable. There is a setting here for its resolution, so you can see the amount of geometry in it goes down, and I would recommend you don't have it too high. And like every other object in Blender, I can go Shift D to duplicate it, and if I do that, Shift D, GY, so I've now got 3 of them. And the nice thing is I can just go in and tweak this one a little bit just to make it look a little different. Do the same with this one. So that they don't look like it's 3 similar cables. Now, at the moment, that is still like it's not a mesh, it's still a vector, so we need to convert it if we want to bring it out of Blender and into Unity, or we want to use it in the Blender game engine. We can't, like if I was crazy enough now to go Blender game and hit P, you can see on the side of the gun that the cables have disappeared. Okay, so let's get out of this and go back into cycles. Okay, I can do the same with these. I'm going to join these together, so I've got one. So Control J joins them together. Now I can do the same with this as I've done so far with my mirror modifier. So Shift S, cursors are selected, object, transform, origin to 3D cursor, and then add in a mirror modifier. So although it's a special kind of object, it still will let me do that. And then I can repeat that process throughout. So I can go into edit mode, select them all, go G, Shift D, duplicate, and use them up here. So I can scale them up, Now, let's have a look at how this works. So each point on this has 2 handles. If I select this one here and bring it in, so that the smoothness or the tightness of the curve is determined by how far away this handle is from this central point. And these are also used to rotate. So we don't want these ones because they are for rotating. So we want to move these. We need to select the central ones. So every set, there's 3 on this end, 3 on that end, and then a center point. It's the center ones that will actually move things. So now I can move this piece here. So let's put this in there, and then okay, and we will look from the front and rotate this and move it down. Then we'll take these 3 here, and where will we put these? We'll put these into this leg. So I'll put them here and then rotate that way. And then these 3, 1, 2, 3, rotate them around and move them in. Now, let's see what that looks like. So fine, but we probably need to center these up a bit. Okay. So you're starting to get the idea. We can add in an enormous amount of these if we want and get incredible amount of detail of one. But I'll probably add in I'll add in one more set. So I'll select all these and I'll add in some underneath here. So Shift D, and I'll do this nice and quickly. And where are they? These 3, 1, 2, 3. And you'll notice that in my positioning of these, I'm not connecting 2 moving parts. While you can do that, it will. Sorry, I'm trying to speak and do it. Yeah, you can do that, but then you'll have to animate them afterwards, which is not impossible, but is quite difficult to avoid stretching of parts. So obviously it's a cable, so it's the sort of metal cable, for example, wouldn't stretch. So it would test your animation skills profoundly. So I would suggest, if you haven't made these before or made a mech before, that you would think twice before connecting like the bottom and top of the leg using these. Otherwise you're going to end up with a very interesting animation job on your hands. Okay. Now, so just for I'm going to add in material on them. They're not unwrapped or anything, so it won't really make a big difference. just want you to see now, so here's my vert count, so I'm 62,000. In order to get them to work and export properly, I'm going to have to convert them to a mesh. So I go convert, so mesh from curve. Okay, now it's giving me an error here because these I haven't unwrapped them yet. But I want you to see that Blender has now converted them to a mesh, and now we're set as 1,800 verts in these cables, which is not a huge amount, it's 2,000. But if you start going to town and you didn't, if you remember, we changed the resolution. If you left the resolution high so that they were very round, yeah, you can very quickly rack up your vert count. Okay, so we'll save that, and we'll render out an image. Okay, so let's take my camera here and press N and go up to lock camera to view. So I'm going to render out a picture of the mech. Okay, so I'm going to take this light here. This is the only light we have in the scene. That isn't one of our onboard lights. So I'm going to delete this so we get to see what it looks like with just the onboard lights. It should be very dark. Okay, now we have ambient occlusion? We don't, so let's turn on ambient occlusion. So immediately everything is suddenly much brighter and not as nice. So we'll reduce this to say 0.1. So this is what our mech looks like at the moment. If we turn this off, we get a much simpler sort of view. So yeah, so this is our mech. Now I'm going to render this out. So just to show you renderings, let's give us a basic sort of image. I'm going to turn to GPU compute, so I'm going to use my graphics card. I'll just show you here. So I've got a GTX 760, so not a bad card, but not a new one. You get to set your sample rate, so this is the sample rate for the render, so we'll put this in at say 200 samples. I've reduced some of these settings here to reduce the render time, and I've also put in, I've changed the tile size from 64 by 64 to 256, so bigger tiles, so it'll render more quickly. And it's HD, so I'm going to press the render button, and we'll get an image that we can use as for a menu or for yeah, for a background in something. And so you'll see it render out now, and then I'll save it. And the length of time that it takes to render is based on the number of samples, the speed of your computer, the complexity of the model, and in particular the complexity of the lighting. If you have a lot of lights and a lot of, say, reflective surfaces, it can take an awful lot longer to render. So there's our image of our mech. We'll press F3 and we can save this. Test render number 2. That's us done.